There will not be a repeat. It was kind of assumed that USC had its next defensive coordinator in its crosshairs. All they had to do, pull the trigger, bring him home. If USC took its best shot, they missed. Got Marvin Powell III, MVP3. He is back. We're going to talk about USC's defensive coordinator situation. They're still looking. And what's going into it? What's behind the thought process? And the Trojans, they already got their first commitment out of the transfer portal. All that is coming up next on this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, if USC took its best shot, they missed. Fight on, everyone. Welcome to Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, also the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, this show is going to be free. This show will always appreciate your support. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, right before tip-off. Check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, Marvin, there are times when the stars are aligned. The best possible option is literally just waiting outside your front door. You just got to kind of open the door. Let fate take its course. I'm thinking it should have been love at first sight. Pete Kwiatkowski, the most recently fired defensive coordinator from Texas, is now apparently heading to Stanford. Everyone thought he's coming to USC. Doesn't look that way. Pete Thamel reported over the weekend, according to sources, Pete Kwiatkowski, the former Washington and Texas defensive coordinator, has emerged as a strong candidate for Stanford's defensive coordinator job. Under Kwiatkowski, Texas ranked number three in the SEC defense in number 25 in 2025, and they were actually number 1 in 2024. Again, everyone thought PK was the best target for USC. That was the big name. Everyone was just waiting for it to happen. Apparently, he's off the table now. Again, I don't know what the hiccup was. Maybe he's still on the table. It doesn't feel that way because, the longer it takes, usually not a good sign. So I'm not sure what the hiccup was. We can talk about that the next segment. This just feels like a huge swing and miss by USC. Again, this is not the first time. How did we get here, number one? And why does it always feel like USC knows what the right move is, but they never take it? I mean, why would Stanford get this guy over USC? Now I'll shut up.
Listen, this thing with Antonlynn dragged out, took forever, much longer than it should have, to be honest with you. And at the same time, we're looking at this guy because he's a great candidate, because he has a phenomenal track record. He's done it. He's done it again, and he's done it again. He's put guys in the NFL at every single level because this year, even with a Texas offense that really struggled in the beginning and put their Texas defense in a bad position, he still finished with a defense better than ours. So listen, it definitely was a miss in regards to getting somebody who had a proven track record. Lincoln Riley can't do favors. We did favors with Alex Grinch. We kept Alex Grinch 1 year too long. Lincoln says, yeah, but he got on the plane, and I understand that, but he has to understand what the standard is, and he has to understand, what the mecca of college football should really look like. It's going to have an outstanding defense. It's going to have a great defense. It's going to have a physical defense. It's going to have an MFer running that defense, and we definitely missed here. Listen, there are other candidates out there, I guess, and we'll get into that. There are definitely other people out there who are capable, who had track records and resumes, and these are the type of guys I'm talking about. But it just seemed like this guy was coming from, what is perceived as an elite program based on what they spend and the kind of recruits that they get. There's a standard over at Texas as well. And, he was able to do pretty well, and not just at Texas, but even prior to that. I mean, this guy has a track record. So, yeah, this is easily going to be, based on the timing, just where we are in year 5 of the Lincoln Riley experience, this is going to be the biggest hire of his entire tenure. You know what I'm saying? Because he needs a guy who can take all these transfer portal guys that we're going to get, take this number one recruiting class who we're expecting out of 34 guys, a few guys should be able to play for us. And then you take the guys who are coming back and returning. He's going to have to take all those guys and put together a playoff caliber defense out the gate. And it's possible. It's possible when you look at, what makes up the roster and how you make your roster up these days. So it's possible. So, I've heard as well from a few different sources that, if Pete were to come in here, he wanted his own people. And the issue there obviously is, some of our best recruiters are on the defensive staff. Okay. Coach Belk, Coach Henney. I absolutely believe that having Rob Ryan in the room and talking to parents and young kids is beneficial. So that matters, I'm saying that definitely matters. And, I know we'll get into other things in the second segment, but, you hear about the potential of, well, if Pete comes, then we're going to lose some players, what I'm saying? Cause that means Henney won't be the coach. And, no, this is Lincoln Riley showing us that he finally gets it. This is what this hire really means, that he finally gets it. And you understand that running your defense is, for as good as your offense is, you need a defense to complement you, because we won't be able to take advantage of the Lincoln Riley offense, which, let's be honest, has had its moments. Again, this year we put up numbers and, Jaden played well, and Makai and the backs. The offense as a whole is not the issue. We feel good about our offense, especially with our quarterback coming back. But we'll never see the real benefit of that offense without a defense. Leadership matters. It starts at the top. So we need a guy in there who has done it. There's no mystery. There's no guessing game. You know what I mean? And that was Pete Kwiatkowski. So Andrew Luck, he said he wasn't playing around. And obviously I know they got some money up in Stanford, and they obviously did what they did. And, Pete was tired of waiting. Because again, the Danton Lynn thing didn't help us. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't mean him leaving, but just dragging it out. You know what I mean? So, and leaving the night before the game, that's a whole other story, Mark. But anyway, we definitely missed on a guy that was real, and a guy that was proven, and a guy who we already know what he's about. And given the players that we have who will be there in the spring, there's an opportunity for an elite coach, an outstanding defensive coordinator to really do something. So we missed out, man. But let me say this: for as much as we talked about Lincoln and decision making in the last show, Chad knows what time it is. Our GM, he knows what time it is. Jen Cohen knows what time it is. So I'm genuinely trusting that they have their stuff together. There's a reason for what they've been doing and what this process has been, and that this next hire will be a home run hire. It has to be a home run hire. It doesn't have to be the biggest name, but it has to be somebody who has a track record and isn't learning on the job in year 5 of Lincoln Riley.
So I guess my question is this: if it has to be a home run hire, and you had one, literally a softball was just lobbed to you with the Pete Kwiatkowski thing, assuming he's going to Stanford. He's a Southern California guy, born and raised in Santa Barbara. Stanford is still located in California, even though they play in the ACC conference. It just seems odd that this is just one of those opportunities again. And I think there's the devil's in the details. It probably has something. I don't think it was financial. I don't think it had anything to do with money, because Stanford might have one of the biggest endowments in the country, but USC, when it comes to football, they're willing. Lately, the last couple of years, they've shown they're willing to invest in their football program. So I really don't think it was about finances. I think it's probably came down to staff, that type of stuff, which we'll kind of get into that in this very next segment. We're going to talk about, you can see, don't let the tail wag the dog. I wrote a story over there on wearesc.com for Sunday, my Sunday takeaway, basically with that title, USC, do not let the tail wag the dog. We're living in an era right now where college football players have a lot of power. They're getting paid a lot of money, and they think they have a lot of say. And that say includes, hey, we would prefer this guy to be our defensive coordinator, because if he's not, we might have to consider taking our talents elsewhere. I'm not saying those threats are out there right now, but I think it's definitely plausible. Let's just put it that way. You brought up Chad Bowden. Interesting. I don't know how much say should the general manager in college football. We're not talking about NFL. How much say should the general manager in college football have in the head coach's coaching staff? We can dive into that a little bit in the next segment as well. And in the third segment, We're going to talk about USC get their first portal commitment, and it's at a position of need. All that's coming up next. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame. It's a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app right before the action starts. Happy Hour is always fun, but now you actually have an appointment to make Happy Hour. Fridays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, they become appointment viewing with the NBA Happy Hour. And the timing is perfect right before the game starts, right before the weekend kicks in. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So over at WRSC, Marvin, over the weekend, I wrote my Sunday takeaway op-ed piece. And the title is, Do Not Let the Tail Wag the Dog. It's a VIP article. I encourage everybody to take advantage of the half-off offer we got going over right now. You're all here at Locked On USC. It's free. It's part of the #1 sports podcast network. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming back. But when you're done with Locked On USC, there's a place for you to go. So once the gift of Pete K was, for whatever reason, taken away, I've had people tell me he wasn't, one of the reasons could be he wasn't well liked by some of the players over at Texas. Fine. I take that with a grain of salt because I don't know of any coach that is universally loved by everyone in the program, period. That's just a fact of life. Here's my concern, and it's that some of USC's highest paid players, future NFL guys, they're making sure that their wants are heard. This should not be about what the players want. USC's need, and you said it, USC's next defensive coordinator, it has to be what they need. It has to be a home run hire. It has to get USC's defense back to playing USC's defense. So this is what I wrote. Let me give you a quick excerpt, and then you can take over. Former players have skin in the game, okay? They've left blood on the floor inside the walls of Troy. They've earned the right to speak their minds. They will always have a seat at the table when it comes to knowing what the standard is. The problem is, they're not always right. Before Clay Helton was given the keys to the Ferrari, USC's former head coach received a full-throated endorsement from a couple of the best Trojans to ever suit up. Sua Cravens, Keyshawn Johnson. There were others as well. Those weren't the only two. But this is why players, past and present, should not pick the program's next defensive coordinator. We know what happens sometimes when you go with emotion over pragmaticism, doing the right thing. In the latest episode of College Football's Evolution, where the employees are telling their boss what the real deal is, there's a growing sentiment among some USC players and fans that the Trojans' next defensive coordinator should be chosen by popular vote, or at least by the loudest voices in the locker room. This is not about whether or not Eric Henderson is the right guy for the job, Marvin. He's the name that's being floated out there that the players are voting for. It's a social media campaign. For all we know, he could be the next greatest thing since sliced bread. But the players should not be picking. Agree or disagree?
I completely agree with you. There's no doubt about it. Let me lead into it to this like this. Okay. We should be looking at this decision and looking at Lincoln Riley the same way he's looking at his fifth-year players who will be fifth-year players. You know, you evaluate after every season, okay? Yes. Well, we're evaluating Lincoln after 4 seasons, and in the 5th season, we're going to decide, you know, what kind of coach you are, what you really bring to the table. We're going to see it, okay? Part of that is your decision-making, and I think that he was loyal to Alex Grinch that second year. Like he said, you know, Alex Grinch got on the plane. You know, he sacrificed and came with me. And I understand that mentality. I actually respect that as a man, just man to man. But he has to understand that, you know, his loyalty is to the standard. It's to the standard. It's again, Howard Jones, John McKay, John Robinson, Pete Carroll. That's what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And this, again, the biggest decision, you know, of his tenure. No, players cannot decide, this cannot be an emotional situation. Players don't have, it's kind of like the kids and parents. They don't have the awareness. They don't have the life experience. They don't understand sometimes the bigger picture and the details and whys. But Lincoln needs to understand that. He needs to understand that. So, I think this is an opportunity really to shake things up. That's really what I think. And I think, I thought that, maybe because Belk has experience, and maybe because Henny had been to the NFL and had experience, and one of the greats in there with Donald, and he's such a phenomenal recruiter, and he's been in the room with many guys. No, this isn't the job that you earn your stripes in your first year. We can't test you out as a first-time defensive coordinator at SC in year 5 at USC, and the players coming out. Listen, I respect that. They should do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I completely respect these.
Love loyalty. I love that.
And really what it tells you is that Lincoln's done a great job of bringing guys in who can connect with these players. You know what I'm saying? Who really these players believe in, and that's important. And you want that. And listen, the guys on defense, these are big recruiters, man. These are big time recruiters with Henny and Belkin guys. So, you wonder if we lose, if we don't hire Henny and he goes somewhere else, do we lose players? What does that impact? You know what I'm saying? So, with that, I would be honest. In this new day of college football, I would say if we don't hire Henny and we were to lose players, buy more, get more. They're out there. Listen, guys.
No, like I said, that's just how it is today.
You know what I'm saying? But I have to start thinking in the new era and not this old mentality. We need a new voice. We need an MFer in there running that defense who's done it before. I love Henny as a recruiter. If you look at a lot of the recruiting listings, he's listed as one of the top 10 recruiters in the nation. That's huge. I mean, that's huge. When you talk about building dynasties and building championship teams, it starts with the Jimmys and the Joes. I've said it before, or over schematics. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have players. We got to figure out a way to talk to these players so they realize the bigger picture, the bigger opportunity. Not to go back to the second segment, but again, Pete Kwiatkowski, this guy had a track record of putting guys in the NFL at every level. D-line, linebackers, and DBs. He's done this time and time again, year after year. You know what I'm saying? His track record was remarkable. So, no, we don't need the, I think he can do it. I believe in him. We need the guys who he's done it. And we got to be able to talk to the players so they can understand, again, the bigger picture, bigger opportunity. What the players don't understand is for as much as we have, great coaches at USC, there are great coaches at a lot of places, you know what I'm saying, that they don't know about, and they're not feeling that. So, no, the tail shouldn't wag the dog. I understand the players' emotion. I get that. I love the loyalty. I get that. But this is when Lincoln has to be at his best. Again, we're talking about the biggest hire of his tenure when you're considering where we are going into year 5 of Lincoln Riley.
No, absolutely. And again, this for me, this is not whether or not Coach Henny is capable of doing the job. For all we know, he is more than capable.
This ain't the year to find out, Mark. This ain't the year to find out. That's the bottom line.
This is not the season to find out. Right. No. Exactly. Precisely. If this was last year, okay, maybe we say, all right, you know what, just slide on in. But you're coming off a year where you were this close. Like Coach Riley talks about all the time. We're close. We've been, for 4 years, the window's now open. Well, if the window's open, you got to go with you got to make sure you get there. You got to jump through that window. You got to make it happen. Yeah. And Doug Belk has defensive coordinator experience from the University of Houston. You would jump him for Coach Henny. And again, love Coach Henny. Top recruiter. Great guy. Guys want to play for him. But then, take off the blinders. Did you like the results from that position group this year? And that's, again, I'm not asking for an answer. Yeah. It's one of those rhetoricals. Think back. Did you like it? Do you see development? Is he ready to take over the entire defense? Can he motivate an entire defense to show up when the ball is kicked off instead of waiting till second half to get things started? So,
Mark, one of the things that I didn't say on the last show when we were talking about the TCU game, and this is real. I mean, listen, we missed tackles. Obviously, we know how the game ended, and I went off on that whole situation. But one thing that I will admit is there were moments, especially in the first half of the game on defense, that I thought our guys were flying around, man. I thought Desmond Stevens probably played his best game of the year just in regards to just effort and coming downhill and just flying and playing sideline to sideline. And a lot of that is juice that you get from the DC and the pregame talk, night before the game. I mean, you got a new voice up there and in a new position. And that was Henny. That had to be Henny as a DC in the game. He was the one giving these guys that last message. Inspiring the guys is a big thing. That's a huge, don't over that. That's not the whole, being a rah-rah coach. That's a real thing. And I'm not calling him that or just that, but that's a real thing. Being able to motivate these young men to go out there and do it. That's part of what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I really give him credit for that because I saw some. I did see that. I noticed that. You know what I'm saying? And for as much as we went off on that game last week, I didn't mention that. But still,
you're bringing up great points, Mark, because you're correct. It looked like the players were in the right position. Mm-hmm. Look, we know how the game ended, but to your point, for the overall, from the start to finish, it looked like the guys were prepared, ready to play.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't get the results you wanted, but they did. They looked like they wanted to play. For Coach Henny was calling the defense for that game. Again, 1 game sample size. Do you gamble on that and say, let's rock and roll, let's go, let's do it. We're all in 2026. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Again, it's a gamble. It's a risk.
Yeah, it is. It's a risk, and we can't have that. We need something. What Lincoln needs, when you look at how important this year is, he needs really a head coach on defense, somebody who, again, and Pete Kwiatkowski out of Texas would have been, a great hire for that, I think. Right. But there are other people out there who I think would be a home run as well, potentially. So no, he needs to really be able, because he's not giving up play calling. So the idea of him being a CEO coach, which that people have talked about, that's not going to happen. He's calling the plays next year, y'all. He's going to be in the same position. He needs somebody who can run that defense, who knows how to do it, who's been done it. Obviously, with Rob Ryan in the room and him being a D coordinator in NFL for 20 years, you want that influence as well. I think we have leadership in the room. I think we have guys in the room who know what they're doing. But in regards to who's going to run the show over there, the players have to understand that we need the next level. And the next level isn't the guy who we think is promising and can do it in year 1. We need the guy who's done it and done it and done it again at the level that we need. And Kwiatkowski, he had a top 25 defense multiple times. That's relevant. That's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Top 5 in the SEC. That's a guy that you want. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it is what it is. It looks like we're moving on
to the next. And there's other great candidates out there. So Lincoln, let's go.
But the next great candidate is probably going to want to pick his own staff as well. I don't know if this is playing a role in this or not. Pete might have said, hey, I got my own guys I want to work with. We don't know. We're not privy to those details.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, you know what? If I'm the defensive coordinator at a place like USC, I want to pick the guys on my staff.
That's fair.
I want to have some major input.
Yeah, it's normal. It's normal and fair. So listen, the reality is we bring somebody new in, we lose some guys on staff, and that hurts because, again, between Belk and Henny, we have some top recruiters, y'all. We do. I mean, that's something that Lincoln got right, obviously.
Speaking of top recruiters, I guess that's the perfect segue for the third segment. USC got their first commitment second commitment out of the transfer portal. Christian Pierce's younger brother is joining the program, but we've known about that for a couple of weeks. He's coming over from Oklahoma State. USC just signed a big-time need. Big-time need. We'll talk about that in the next segment. So there's nothing like college football, the season. I mean, Marvin, we're talking about it still. I mean, USC season is over, but it's not really. Between the tailgates, the packed stadiums, being right there in the middle of it all, the energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually, getting tickets to these games, that part, it sucks. It can be really frustrating. You're standing in line for the long queues online. You're logged in. All of a sudden, you look down. Oh, I'm not logged in. I got to log back in. And then the price jumps at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets. The experiences, you do it all in just a few taps. You'll love being able to see the view from your seat before buying. That way you know exactly what you're getting. And Game Time also has something called their zone deals. These things really stand out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, you save even more money. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms are going to apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. So we don't know who USC's next defensive coordinator will be. We don't. But we know who will be playing cornerback for the Trojans in 2026. On 3, they learned late Sunday afternoon, now that he's now a former Iowa State cornerback. His name is Jontez Williams. He committed to USC. It was on Sunday during the weekend. So he's a redshirt junior. He's going to have one more season of eligibility to play. 5'11", 200 pounds. He's a 4-star transfer prospect, and he's actually considered the number 1 cornerback prospect in the transfer portal. USC's defensive back room, cornerback room, it is loaded with talent, loaded with elite talent. The challenge for Trovon Reed, sounds like he's sticking around since you're getting a commitment out of the transfer portal, is that he doesn't have anybody with a lot of experience. He's got 2 guys. You got Marcellus Williams, and you got Chasen Johnson, who missed most of 2025 with an injury. You're bringing in Jontez Williams, who was an all Big 12 selection in 2024. He missed most of the 2025 season with an injury. He finished 2025 with 15 tackles, 1.5 of those were TFLs, a few pass breakups, and an interception. His head coach, Matt Campbell, he left Iowa State. He's now going to Penn State. This is what he said about him. Tez is going to be out for the year, so that's a situation that really stinks for the kid. But, man, just how he's handled it. He's been uber impressive. He's a great human being. He'll be back ready to rock and roll next year. So you're bringing in a guy who's got 17 games of starting experience. And you're bringing in a guy who played in call it pass happy. Big 12 likes to throw the ball around. I don't know how much you know about the young man, but this is a good sign. He found somebody at a position of need that they need. And I don't know, does it tell us that Trovon Reed is sticking around? Yeah. Do you think the players on the roster, as well that they're considering in the transfer portal, do you think they're being told who the defensive coordinator is going to be?
I think that they're being told that it's USC and we're going to bring in somebody elite. I think they're being told that, listen, they recognize how important this decision is, and they're reminding these young recruits that USC is a destination place for coaches who want to coach elite athletes and move on to the NFL or move on to be head coaches. So I think they're assuring them it'll be a home run, and they recognize the moment. So. In regards to names, I'm sure they're throwing out names. There are names all over the internet that make a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? And they're in the building and they're talking to other players. So they're hearing things that me and you aren't hearing. You know what I mean? So they're being absolutely convinced that this will be the right hire. And listen, let's be honest. Lincoln's last hire was the right hire. Danton was a great pick. We went from 124 to 50th. You know what I mean, or in the 40s. So. That he did that right. So yeah, it'll be consistent with that. And now with Chad Bowden in the fold, his influence is heavy. I mean, apparently he's running the show. They recognize the moment, and they're definitely communicating that to the athletes and to the parents.
Well, what I find really interesting about this was his first trip. He's been in the portal. He lined up his trips of the teams that he was interested in. It was USC, Notre Dame, and Florida, where he's from. He visited USC first. After he left USC, he canceled his next trips to Notre Dame and to Florida. So to me, that's a very positive sign. It probably, I don't know if I want to read the tea leaves, tells me that Trovon Reed is probably staying.
Yeah.
Now we just got to find out who's going to be the defensive coordinator, because that's really the next step.
Yeah, these guys love Trayvon. I mean, he's doing a phenomenal job as a recruiter, along with Belk and Henny, and he's been big, man. You hear a lot of the guys reference him, so he's connecting with these players. You know what I'm saying? He's a younger guy. He's from the younger generation. He played in the league. He played under Pete Carroll, so he has a lot of perspective, and he understands energy, and he understands connection, and he understands the mindset of a player. So he's been big in that process, and I would think he's absolutely coming back. I hope he's coming back because he's been a phenomenal addition, to our program. In regards to the player we got here out of Iowa State, I mean, look, the fact that the number one player went to USC and he committed here before going anywhere else tells you a lot when you consider he's been on other recruiting trips as a high school player. He's been through the process. He kind of knows what it looks like. At Iowa State, he dealt with guys who were coming in, transferring in. He has perspective. We came here and it was a one-shot deal. That says a lot. I mean, that says a heck of a lot other than just they gave him the bag. He was going to get the bag anywhere he went to. You know what I'm saying? So this definitely says a lot. My concern is just that he's injured. I understand where we are today in sports technology, sports science. We saw Adrian Peterson tear his ACL, come back, run for 2,000 yards 9 months later, literally. So I'm not worried about that, but I would love to see guys who could play in the spring, and really get in that system and really, get that thing going. But for them to make this commitment to him, they made a serious commitment for sure, then medically he must be fine, meaning that he'll be ready to go by the date that they're saying, and they feel good about that. But really, I want to bring in healthy guys because, again, this is a 1-year deal. You know what I'm saying? So we need guys ready to go right now.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Look, I don't think anybody's going to be upset with who USC brings in through the transfer portal. They've had a lot. In fact, they had quite a few visitors over the weekend. They're focusing in on the linebacker spot. There haven't been any elite names that have shown up yet. With that said, players are still funneling into the transfer portal. There's more players and spots available. That's a whole nother story. But USC is focused right now on positions of need. They've got one filled. An experienced veteran cornerback can help all those young elite guys find their way, whether it's, during spring, PRPs, and then the fall camp. Box one checked. Let's check off the other boxes, especially the biggest one staring us in the face. So the next time Marvin and I talk, we're talking about USC's next defensive coordinator. I will be back again tomorrow with another episode. Maybe there'll be another update. Who knows? We'll find out between Sunday night and Monday morning. But I'll be here. Marvin will be back later this week. We're going to talk about it all. So until that next episode, everyone, you know what to do.